Hello, this is your host, Austin Hopkins, and welcome to the Introvert Leader Podcast. Thank you so much for joining episode 4, Humor at Work. Happy to have you guys here today. Want to give you a quick update on what's been going on in my world. So to kick it off, I've been cycling a little bit more outside. So as the weather gets a little warmer, we're breaking a couple of days of 50 degrees here in New York. It's been awesome to get outside and do a little bit more cycling. And specifically, we have an awesome cycling trail right next to a beach, Jones Beach. So it's like 15 miles each way, so you can get a great ride in. And I've been doing that a couple of times this week, been loving it. And anytime I'm biking, you better believe I'm listening to music. So music-wise, I actually have been kind of going back and listening to Drake's album from 2022 called Honestly Nevermind. So it's kind of a mixed reviews when it came out. But for me, I'm a diehard Drake fan. And specifically, I love this music for kind of background music. Right? It's not something that I'm going to necessarily listen to at a party, but more kind of background if I'm working out, doing the dishes, something like that. So been enjoying that recently, and a lot of good tracks on that album. And then as far as what I've been watching, I of course been still watching Last of Us, loving that, but I also watched The Weeknd live at SoFi Stadium on HBO Max. And I'm a huge Weeknd fan and don't necessarily love going to concerts, right? I am an introvert, so get me around a whole bunch of people and might be my worst nightmare. But I watched The Weeknd live at SoFi Stadium, and it was awesome. So I was able to watch it at home, made the wife, a cocktail, kind of vibed out, and it's the next best thing instead of being there in person. So highly recommend giving that a shot if you haven't checked it out already. All right, guys, as I mentioned during the last episode, we got a special one today. We're talking about all things humor. And personally, I would say humor not only makes work more enjoyable, but I believe it's kind of an easy way to build fantastic relationships. In fact, the gentleman that we have on the phone here today, our relationship started all because he is a jokester. And, I shared early on that I wanted to invite people that I thought had, interesting perspectives and experiences on the podcast. So I've been lucky enough to call my guest today a close friend for, I think it's been over 15 years. And today we are joined by Cody Solvey. Cody currently resides in Washington State, and he has worked for a Fortune 100 beverage company for the last 10 years or so, and has launched multiple businesses, married, kids. We're going to hear all about Cody today. So please welcome to the podcast, Mr. Cody Solvey. How we doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. Thank you for that warm welcoming.
You're welcome.
Excited to be here.
I didn't add on the welcome that, you do think you are funnier than me. And I was going to say, outside of your obvious, delusional self-image, you are one of my favorite people.
Well, I've definitely taught you quite a bit. I mean, just throughout your life, I've taken you under my wing.
It's kind of like a mentor-mentee relationship, it sounds like. Son of a gun. Okay, so what are your thoughts? First podcast. I mean, obviously, this is my first time interviewing someone, but what are your initial thoughts on doing a podcast?
Oh, man, new experience, right? So I'm expecting lots of awkwardness externally and internally, but knowing that personally that I'm going to teach you a few things today gets me really excited and confident in what I'm going to be bringing to the table.
All right. And it started already, folks. So, okay, here's what I want to do, my friend. I want to, for the listeners out there, I want to give them a little background on Cody. So we're going to ask you a couple questions. We're going to do a couple lightning rounds so that people can get the full Cody experience, as it were, I should say. So here's the first question. It's Saturday, right? You're at home. You're with the kids. What's the ideal Saturday look like in the Solvey home? Give it to me.
Barbecues. I would say on Saturdays we like to barbecue or some kind of dinner, depending on the time of year, right? Mm-hmm. Just that family time, just being able to enjoy my wife and my kids.
Okay.
And our two dogs. I don't want to forget them either. We have our two Goldens. So as you said in your last one of your past podcasts, that you have some of the best dogs ever. But I will say to the group here, Austin decided to get a dog due to my dog Boomer, which is one of the best dogs you will ever meet.
Okay, these are facts, folks. These are facts. I remember, it was like maybe 2015, and you were going out of town or something with Angela, and you had asked if we would babysit the dog. So me and my wife, we babysitted the dog, and dude, we fell in love with Boomer. We let him sleep in the bed. I remember you gave us, explicit instructions. Don't let him sleep in the bed under any circumstance. And we were hooked, dude. We did.
Oh man. And the thing is Boomer never got to sleep in the bed, but Bailey, for some reason, we just had a soft spot for her. So this is our other golden. She got to sleep in the bed there for quite a bit, but she turned in more to like a lap dog after that. So we had to start having some strict rules about getting on the couch, because you would see all the cushions just fall. They're falling over. They're just bent in due to a dog trying to lay on top of a couch like a cat.
Dude, what is it with Goldens? Mine does the same thing. She'll go on the back of the couch and literally like sit up there behind my neck. And it's like the weirdest thing. I don't know where they learn this stuff from. Okay, so here's the next question. So a lot of people don't know this, but you kind of turned me on to hip hop, as it were, right? Grew up in a super kind of religious household and hadn't really got much exposure to hip hop. And I would say that you kind of brought me down the path. So knowing all that, knowing that you're my hip hop inspiration, who are you listening to hip hop wise or rap these days? Who's your go-to?
Ooh, man, I love my R&B.
This is true.
I've always been big on R&B and
Yep.
hip hop.
Yep.
Back in the day when The Weeknd first launched Trilogy, we would bump that
Ooh,
all night.
great album. Great album.
I like to consider ourselves some CLBs, certified lover
Mm-hmm.
boys. We
Yep.
like our Drake, right?
Self-appointed. Yep. Yep.
But Darcy, I don't know how much Darcy you're listening to these days, but very catchy, good beat, good voice. But Darcy would be the artist these days that I'm listening to.
Okay. I haven't checked. It's a him or a her?
It's a him.
It's a him. Okay. We got to check him out. Darcy, Darci, right? Something like
That's
that.
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nailed it. I know how to spell too. Moving on. Okay, here is the next question. So tell me, what are you doing recently, like hobbies, passion-wise? What have you been doing for fun? You're not working or hanging out with the kids. What are you kind of doing to stay active, stay fun? What's it look like?
Yeah. So me and the wife we're into fitness. So I am prepping for a classic physique show for July 8th. So that's taken up quite a bit of time, as we got to dedicate multiple hours a day, at the gym in order to master our physiques. But I'm also a foodie. So, I'm always going through Pinterest, looking at new recipes and doing quite a bit of cooking. We like to host. So due to me not being able to eat the food, I get to watch other people experience the food. And then, somehow I get some kind of satisfaction out of that. It's kind of weird, but
some twisted satisfaction. It
yeah,
works.
yeah. Describe the taste to me, please.
What's it taste like going down? Oh my gosh, that's funny. Okay, so how many months away are we from the competition?
Oh man, we're 22 weeks. So we're 22 weeks away.
Dang. So is it like full bore every day? You're on a strict kind of eating plan, workout plan, or has that come later?
Yeah. So eating plan, I'm currently on a macro plan.
Okay.
And with that, I get one cheat meal a week. So I really make sure that whatever that cheat meal is going to be is something I've been craving just throughout the week. And I'll throw a couple things in there. I try to stay away from sugar, because I found that's when the cheat meal doesn't end and kind of goes throughout the weekend, is that sugar. You just keep coming back to it. Workout wise, it's 6 days a week. I usually try to take one rest day. We'll usually try to make that like a Sunday so we can do like a family day. But it's a push, pull, leg, arm rotation. So I try to hit everything at least once a week. So it's definitely something I'm passionate about and I love doing.
Dude, I remember seeing you on stage for your first show, and I remember thinking, holy crap, the guts it must take to get on stage and bear it all, if you will, and have people judge you. I mean, quickly tell me, what was that first competition like? And like, if you had to sum it up in like one sentence, what's it like to be on stage and have your physique judged by perfect strangers?
Dude, I was literally thinking, what the hell am I doing as I walked out onto the stage? How embarrassing to get out there and just to flex your muscles. It's honestly, it's a bro sport, right? But there's so much that goes into it. So a lot of like the competitors have respect for one another.
Sure.
But I would say to you, the average pop, it's come on.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm rooting for you, man. I wish I could be there in person to see. Actually, no, that's weird. I don't know if I want to see you on stage flexing. Yeah, I think that would take our relationship to the next
Yep,
level.
we're going there.
We're going there. Oh man. Okay, so now that people know about Cody and kind of a little bit about you personally, I want to kind of transition into talk about humor at work. So I think the reason why I wanted you to be on the episode and talk about humor is that the way we kind of met and became friends is it's kind of a funny story, and I think it would be interesting for people to know how kind of this relationship, and I'll call it a forced relationship, I'll call it that, kind of started. What do you think? Should we tell people how it started?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think it's important to let people know who really led this friendship.
Okay. So we're working at a grocery store in Washington. I've got to be 16, and I think you're 15, or are you 16 as well?
At 16.
Okay, 16. And we're working at this grocery store, but we also go to school together. And then do you remember the first time we kind of hung out or the first time we met?
See, I remember the first time I witnessed you. You were in my Spanish class, but the first time we hung out was definitely a very forced. You were trying to go home,
Yeah.
and I made sure that we were going to be friends by the end of the day.
Okay, I'm gonna share the key points of that day. So we're at work, and you and me had been at school together. We had been in Spanish, and I think we had talked about like, hey, we should hang out one day or something. And then we're at work, and I remember you saying like, hey, we should hang out tonight. And the name of this podcast says it all. I'm the introvert, right? So my initial response was, I think I'm busy. And then I think I made up like three or four other excuses. But then I think my last excuse was that I don't have any clothes. Does that sound accurate?
Oh yeah, well, first off, you're obviously in clothes because you're in your work attire. But
This is true.
yes, you said that you didn't have any clothes to go to the theater. And growing up as a kid, that we moved around a lot. Single mom, it was, usually a new place once a year, a new school. So I learned how to make friends real fast, and that was kind of force of friendship. If I thought
Mm.
this person might have been a cool person, which I thought, Austin, that I thought you were going to be cool. But
You were wrong, obviously, but
and at that point in time, you told me that I was just like, oh, no problem, man. I'll go get them for you.
and mind you, we had never hung out before. You had never been to my house. You had never met my parents. And so you just volunteered to drive to my house like 20 minutes away and like rummage through my closet and get me clothes. Is this right?
This is absolutely correct.
Oh my gosh. Now, okay, refresh my memory because it's been so long. I think you actually literally went to my house and got clothes, right? I'm not misremembering
Yes.
this.
Yep. I pulled up to your parents' house. Your dogs were out running around, so it's
Yep.
actually a good thing that I got there.
Yep.
I
Yep.
got
Yep.
your clothes, brought them back to our place of work at the time, and waited for you in the parking lot so that we can go hang out.
Yep. If that's not a forced relationship, I don't know what is. And then I think after that, we just became fast friends because we were working together. I think we were both failing Spanish. And I did say failing because I think
Yeah.
you were just as bad at Spanish as I was.
I mean, I was attending class more than you for sure, so maybe I was a little better.
Okay. All right. Moving on. I don't want my parents to hear the fact that I was skipping school and that you were the reason for it. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. The truth's coming out, folks. Okay. So moving on. So this is how we became friends. We've been friends. We lived together at multiple places. And I guess the real question I want to ask is you've always been someone that's funny, right? Someone that likes to joke and keep things light. Do you remember the first time that you remember that you were funny? Like somebody either told you were funny or you made a joke at school and got a big laugh. Like, does a memory stand out as the first time that you were funny?
Ah, You know, I don't want to necessarily say there's a specific memory when I in my youth. I've always just kind of been a jokester. And I think as you get older, you learn how to read an audience and use your comedy as something as a benefit, whether it's in a conversation or
Sure.
as an icebreaker. But I do remember in high school, I was able to get the girls to laugh and continue like just those belly laughs. And I remember thinking, ooh, I'm pretty funny. So I remember
And very humble. You thought you were very humble too. Very, very humble.
and that was part of my comedy, is that I would state that I was funny though too. So people already had that anticipation of me of being funny. But the one thing that I hated is when I would be put on the spot to be funny.
Gosh, like a dancing monkey, right?
I'm telling you, hey, tell me a joke. I'm like, oh, that's not my type of comedy.
I don't know anything that'll make Cody get a redder face and shrivel up than someone telling him to perform on cue.
Oh no, oh man, it's so bad. It's gotten better as time has gone on, especially with just some of the forced interaction that I've had within my company now. But
Sure.
when it comes to like, hey, act for some, well, I could tell you why. When I was younger, when I was in the 8th grade, I got a call from an audition company to come out and try out to be on a television series.
No, you're
Oh,
making this up. You have
I'm
never been.
not.
No,
I'm telling
no.
you. I'm
not just saying this for the podcast. I literally have never heard this story. I think this is made up, but tell me more.
thought I was going to be famous. I was like, oh, hell yeah. I knew it. I'm going to be famous. So I like go over to my buddy's house at the time, telling him what's happening. My sister's driving me. We're heading to this audition place, and we get in there, and my hands just start sweating. I'm like, what is going on? But the thing is I kept putting lotion on my hands because I wanted to impress the people there with
Oh
with
my!
how soft my hands were. So I was like, oh, but then they would not stop sweating. So I thought that I put too much lotion on, that the lotion was coming out. So I just kept rubbing my legs. I had no idea that I had a nervous problem at this point in time. Like public speaking, I just didn't have a lot of it, through school to this point.
Oh my gosh!
So I didn't realize that was like a fear of mine.
Yeah.
Well, we all get
What
into this
happened?
room, and there's a bunch of kids, and they narrowed it down to 10 kids. We'll say memory, right?
Yeah.
So I'm one of those kids. I'm like, oh my gosh, this
You made
is
the top 10.
happening. Oh, I'm so happy. I'm like, this is gonna happen. I'm gonna be
Wow.
famous after this. This is gonna be really cool. Well, they give us a skit that we have to read
Oh no.
in front of everyone, with the camera pointing on us, with the camera being projected to the audience.
Oh, this sounds horrible.
And I literally, I get up there, I try to remember it. I'm trying to act, never acted in my life. And I'm looking at the camera, I'm doing this weird arm thing, and where I'm just like feeling my emotions. I forget every single word that's on the paper. I get the paper is shaking as if it's in an earthquake, just go back and forth, back and forth. I'm reading the lines. I go sit back down, and my mother goes, "What is wrong with you?"
I expect more from you.
It was so bad. So then after that, now I had to get over that freaking fear of being in front of the public to speak. I'm like,
Oh my gosh. This is the worst. No wonder. Okay, this would have scarred me for life. How did you end up getting in front of people ever again?
well, I continue to have a problem speaking in front of an audience throughout high school.
Okay.
And then in my current job now, I found myself being in a leadership position to where that was forced. And then I learned that it was something that just needs repetition
Sure.
to continue to practice it. Even if you're uncomfortable with it, even if it's something that doesn't necessarily come naturally, it's almost like a muscle memory to where you're able to get up there and get past that first interaction of having that shaky voice and being able to project your voice and be able to get your point across with confidence.
It's a good point. Now, I've heard you, I think on one or two occasions at a work event, and you were up in front of people, but you don't play it serious up there. You're joking around. So like, let me ask you this. When you first started kind of public speaking or getting in front of groups at work, did you feel like humor was just your go-to, or I guess the question I want to ask is, how did you feel comfortable kind of bringing that humor into maybe the more traditional, buttoned up workplace, right?
Yeah. I feel like it's important to be yourself at work. You talk about your strength zones, and I don't think everyone has that humor bone in their body. I do
Sure.
think that it needs to be some organic, but because it became organic for me and it was my natural self, I read my audience at first. I will say that. I always make sure that I read the audience to understand where the group sits, and then understand that with humor, there's that fine line of being a distraction versus being a positive that would in inherit a work production, because a positive mindset is going to work better and faster than a negative mindset. So for me, I just started to bring it in slowly. I will say, it was slowly at first, and it's not cracking jokes in the middle of the meeting. It's being relatable to people by putting kind of your personal information out there, but something that's also relatable to others, and making a joke of it just so that they're able to relate to you. Because we get so caught up within our careers, within our job titles, within our salary, that sometimes we forget that we're more like that other person across the table than what we realize.
Ooh, that's so true though, man. Like, what is it about corporate America? And I can't say it's, all companies are like this, but it almost seems like there is more emphasis or more rewards placed on becoming a idealized version of an employee rather than like an individual. Does that make sense?
Uh, I personally sometimes believe that we do it to ourselves.
Ooh, okay,
There's definitely a lot of pressure that, especially in corporate America, right? There's a lot of pressure that gets put on you because they want to be able to push the most amount of production out of you.
sure.
But I think because we get in this ideal mindset of needing more and wanting more consistently, constantly,
Hmm.
that we get into this pattern of what's my next bet. One of the things that I look at when I'm at work is I'm there not only because I'm working hard, but because I'm compatible with that team.
Okay,
And
like
whether that
synergy. You're vibing well.
yes, and with that, they're going to hear about my family. I'm
Hmm.
with them every day, right? I'm with them, whether that's remote and you're constantly talking through Zoom, or you're in office and you're in the meeting every day. You're going to know a lot about their personal life, and they're going to know a lot about your personal life.
That's so true. But I feel like that's something that, at least with people I've worked at, they don't always prioritize that, and they almost need to keep, a certain kind of guard up. But I do think there's a lot of strength in sharing stuff about you personally, because like you said something about being compatible at work, and I think that's so big. Like at the end of the day, these are human beings, right? So like if you're going to be funny at home and joke with your wife and your kids, why wouldn't you do that at work, right?
Mm-hmm. No,
Yeah.
I think that's a fair point. You would never want to bring your significant other to your place of work and them not know who you are.
Ooh, like two different versions almost is what you're saying.
You see it all the time,
Oh,
and
dude.
and at that point in time, you realize that these people aren't genuine. And
Wow.
when someone's not genuine, then you kind of lose some of that trust for them. And it takes trust is something that's very important within your work environment, and your
So
home life.
true. That's so true. And it's funny you bring up the dual personalities, because I've seen the same thing where it's like, you'll be hanging around with some people from work and then their spouse will come or we'll go out and get drinks, and then you kind of see a change, right? It's almost like they're not the same person they are at work. And I think a lot of reason people do that is like they want to keep things separate and they feel like they have to get ahead. But I think for you and I, we've always kind of embraced, or at least you have from the very beginning, just being who you are at work, which was humor. So I guess my next question I want to ask you is, do you kind of remember any times at work where you might have taken it a little too far? Maybe you made a bad joke. Maybe you said an off-color remark. And, can you remember a time where you did it? You don't have to get into specifics. And then kind of what did you do or what did you learn after that time?
I would say definitely in my younger days, as I was learning to use my humor as like icebreakers.
Sure.
But I remember there was a time that was at one of my first places of work, a grocery store, and I made an inappropriate comment trying to be funny.
Mm,
And as the comment came out, I knew instantly, Bad joke. Bad joke.
Uh-oh. Oh, so
Yeah.
it wasn't, no one had to tell you. You knew right away.
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
Acknowledge. Yep.
Oh
Yep.
no. Oh no.
My apologies.
Oh no. Oh gosh. You had to walk back
Yes.
on that one. Ugh.
Oh yeah. So but you learn from those moments. And
Sure.
I would think that anyone that uses comedy or humor in their day-to-day to bring some sort of, internal lightness to a
Mhm.
group, they've had those moments where the bad jokes have happened and
Yeah.
you learn from it and you learn how to recover first off.
Yeah.
Definitely have to learn how to recover, but
Lick your
second,
wounds, go cry for a second, come back.
but also, on okay, obviously that wasn't beneficial for the group.
Yeah. That's a good point. Now, speaking of like humor that doesn't work, is there anything that kind of stands out to you as like, you shouldn't try this at work? This kind of humor just really doesn't work. Does anything stand out to you in regards to that?
Oh yes. Oh, for sure. The people that or individuals that want to be funny, they shout out in during meetings.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, that's a distraction. We're not here to distract the group. We're here to add to. We need to use comedy as a source of power, really, to
Yep.
motivate.
So like the
to
attention seekers is what you're talking about.
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah.
Attention seekers, I think, is the correct term. And rudeness, attacking
Yeah.
individuals, those aren't witty. Those
No.
are mean jokes, and I would say for the majority of people within the work group, that's not what would be beneficial to the work group. It's that's where you see people stray a little bit more, and you'll start to see culture shift within
Yeah.
a work group. So, that goes back to our point, Austin, of there's a fine line with comedy, and it needs to be beneficial to the work group, and it needs to add to the culture, not take away.
That's a good point. Now, I want to play devil's advocate. Something that I do is, you're right, when I'm at work, I'm joking around and I'll make fun of myself, of course, but I also make fun of others, but it's in good fun, right? It's nothing,
Mhm.
anything about their, core values or their morals or just, real important things as a human. It might be just like a funny nickname about someone or something that they've done that's maybe not the best way to do it, right? A little mistake that they've laughed about in the past. I guess the question becomes, when does it go from making fun of someone in good fun to making fun of someone that's just mean? Like, do you know if there's a line, or is it kind of hard to even draw that line?
You know what? I think that is a special talent that people have that understand comedy, is they can read a person, whether they think that is humorous or whether they think that is rude.
Mm,
Um, to your point, I do think that there is a fine line with it. And once again, you got to read your audience to understand if that is appropriate or if it is pushing the line.
yeah. I think reading the audience, that's a big one. And I think one way that can help with that, and tell me if you agree, is a good way to read the audience or to have the confidence to make a joke around someone is you have to have like a little bit of trust built up beforehand. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah. And I think, it takes time for trust, but
Yeah.
yes, trust definitely needs to be built.
Yeah, like I've seen some people where, I'll meet them for the first time and they've already felt comfortable making jokes at my expense. And, it's no big deal. You can laugh those off and, have thick skin about it. But I do find it interesting that some people will go to making, jokes that might be a little bit off color or over the line, assuming that there's that trust there when it's not. And it makes a big difference in my opinion.
Oh, I agree. And I think that for myself, I always I'll make fun of myself before I make fun of another person, just to lighten the mood.
Yeah,
Um,
I totally agree. Okay, I want to ask you, obviously, we're both into humor, and I think something we both share in common is kind of a love or an interest in stand-up comedy, right? I know at one point you were thinking about maybe doing stand-up comedy. I talked you out of it because you're not all that funny. But speaking of stand-up comedy, who are you listening to? Who, comedians wise, who are you into these days?
oh, that's a great question. So first off, I would like to say it's still a goal of mine. Still been taking notes.
I,
I
I'm
think
I
that's something
passionately
that
disagree with this choice.
I I think that with comedy. It comes to being relatable. And I think that I need more life experiences before I get on stage.
Okay,
I think
fair
that's
enough.
what makes a good comedian for myself, right? That's some of my humor that I like is I like to be able to relate and hear their stories. Personally, and I know this is going to be a little bit more mainstream, but Kevin Hart, I mean, the way that he's able to tell the stories about his life and make each joke connect, and then at
Yes.
the end of it bring everything together is talent. It's
Right.
talent, and it's something cool to see, and something that I hope one day just give me one shot, and I'll be able to do something like that, to pull everything together and just make a full story hilarious, like the way that he does.
Dude, the way he is able to, and I loved how you said tie it all together because we've both seen our fair share of comedians. Some just tell one joke after another, right? There's no connecting, there's no maybe overall direction or overall theme, but he does a fantastic job at like saying a joke or planting a seed at the beginning of his hour. And then at the end of it, he somehow brought it back, right?
Yep. Yeah, 100%. But it's funny because comedy is constantly like changing. It's
That's true.
moving. It's a what's another word that
Moving target.
yeah, moving target. And
Yeah.
so I think that what we think is funny today is that will that be funny 10 years from now? I
God,
mean,
what a question. I mean, I guess we could say we could use TVs or movies as an example. Like some of my favorite movies or TV shows are from the 90s, right? Like I'll put all-time favorite show or in the all-time top 5 Seinfeld, right? That's a 90s show.
yeah.
Office, obviously not as old, but super funny. Some of my favorite movies, I would say definitely from the 90s too, right? Jim Carrey era. Yeah, I think those things are still funny, right?
I yes, I those I guess those kind of have a no expiration
Mm-hmm.
date on them.
That's true.
Those are classics.
Those are
But
classic.
would those still be funny today if they launched that today?
I get what you're saying. Like if we hadn't already seen them 20 years ago when they came out, if we just saw them fresh today, would we find that humor funny?
Yeah, because like on
Ooh.
Seinfeld, you have Jerry Maguire, right? He's on there, and he's not very funny.
Did you say Jerry Maguire?
I'm kidding with
I
you.
can't. I can't. I just really thought on the podcast live.
Show me the money.
I can't. No, no, no. See, you got okay. You got one
I
over
got
on me.
you.
You got me. That's your one for the podcast. That's it. I'm cutting you off. No more. Gosh. Okay, so here's a question. So we talked about comedians who you're liking. You're a Kevin Hart fan. Me too. I know you've seen him multiple times in person as well. Who would you say is maybe? Let me rephrase. What's one of your favorite movies? All-time comedy movies, humor movies. If you had to think of some of your tops, maybe not your all-time favorite, but a few of your favorites. What would those be?
Step Brothers. I
Oh,
think
of course, classic.
that has to be up to Wedding Crasher.
Yep, yep.
You're not going
Not
to
to be
forget that
confused
one.
with Wedding Crashers. Yep, it's a different
Wedding
movie.
Crashers. Yeah.
Yep,
Okay. Thank you.
yep.
Man, those would definitely be my top two.
I would agree. Though Vince Vaughn he's got to be one of my favorite
Oh,
all-time comedy people.
sorry. Due Date sometimes can creep into
Oh,
the top two. Due Date's pretty good.
that's true. I remember when we lived together, you watched that movie. Gosh, it seemed like you watched that movie every night for a year.
Oh, hilarious.
Yeah,
That's a good movie.
that is a good one. Okay, want to transition and ask you a couple more questions about kind of your career and how you've intertwined comedy within it. So I guess when you're thinking about your career and obviously you started at a young age at this company and have been there for a while and quickly moved up, right? And I would say you moved up within the corporate ranks much faster than a lot of your counterparts. Can you pinpoint and say that humor had any effect on that, or are you just amazing in general?
Definitely amazing. I have to remind my wife of that every day.
Okay, good man.
But I think that when we're talking around humor, I like to put that in the same bucket as positivity.
Mm.
And with
Tell me more about
positivity,
that. Tell me more about positivity. What do you mean by that?
I have made my way through my career at a faster track than my peers because I've always had a positive mindset. I've always gone into every situation thinking, what is the solution to the outcome?
Yep.
Not why is this my problem?
Oh, that's good.
Oh, I think that any situation that you go into can have a positive outcome. Never meet a stranger, right? I think that all these things are really important
Hmm.
to always think looking forward, constantly looking forward. Because when I first started, I looked at a position within my company that was within a district level, and I thought that was my ceiling. And I limited myself to that. But as soon as I sat in that chair and I saw the next person, I knew that I could do that job too.
Mm,
And I can do it with a better attitude and with a better culture with my employees through managing and being myself and being funny and understanding people and being
mm,
relatable, showing empathy, but also showing sympathy for people.
yeah. Yep.
I think that's something that we miss.
Yep.
Um, I think that is something that we miss quite a bit because they're always teaching you to show empathy, but sympathy is something that I think helps us understand people's situations a little bit better. It's us putting their shoes on our feet.
Mm, that's good. And you said a lot of good things there, but one thing that stood out to me was the relatable part. And I think that's something. Gosh, what an interesting thing that you can do at work is just to be relatable to people,
Mhm.
right? To show, hey, that you have bad days, and yes, you have good days too, and you get stressed, and you get tired, and your kids, are sick, and so you have to go home. I mean, you're just a human being like everybody else. But I think yeah, being relatable is a fantastic way to build relationships with people at work, and I think that's really what it's all about is relationships, right? You hear people say that, right? It's all about who you know versus what you know, and I do think, well, that's a dumb, stupid phrase. I think there's some truth in that. That it is really all kind of about those relationships, right? Because like, look at us. It's been 15, 16 years. We still know each other, right?
Mhm.
You're best man in my wedding. I was best man in your wedding. We see each other, even though we live on different sides of the country. But it's because we've kind of formed that relationship at work.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And I think what the point I'm trying to make through this is that when you bring all these different outcomes and solutions and just that total work environment into one, that's really what it is. It's just work. So when you see these people getting stressed out, angry and mad, and not having a positive
Mm,
mindset, it creates just this tight circle around everything. And
yeah.
instead of just being a little bit more, I would say, loose, understanding
Yeah.
a situation and working through it, working together. You see this so many times where people will make other people's jobs harder instead of helping them to be better or to lift them up a little bit. They say that
Yeah.
you're only as strong as your weakest link, and it's so true, especially within corporate America, like because that work falls on the rest of you.
Dude, why don't more people? I wish more people thought like that. Honestly, if people thought like this, I feel like there would be less toxic work cultures. I mean, you hear about it all the time on the news. I mean, I have friends that have been a part of toxic work cultures, and it's not good. It's just not good for human beings.
Oh, no, and no one wants to be managed in a toxic work
No,
culture. No one wants to work in that. And then that's when
no.
you see people, starting to jump ship and
Yep.
go, where's the grass going to be greener? There's two different types of people. There's actually individuals that are good workers, and it's like, whoa, why is the company allowing this person to leave? Like, we all know they're a good worker. We should do what we can to keep this person. And
Sure.
then there's the victim mindsets too that are more of a handicap for your business that will jump because they think the work culture is bad, but it's actually that person that is
Oof.
the oddball out, I would say, due
Yeah.
to the victim mindset of, woe is me instead of
Yeah.
how can I solve this?
Oh my gosh, the victim mindset. There is nothing more that infuriates me than people who have a victim mindset. And I think it kind of comes down to self-awareness. I think I could do a whole episode around self-awareness, but I think folks need to have more self-awareness of really what's the value you're adding and what are your weaknesses and what are the things that you're maybe not perfect at that are affecting others. I think self-awareness is like such a thing that people lack in many cases. Okay, let's transition. I want to wrap up by leaving the listeners with a challenge, right? I always think it's good to kind of have something you can focus on for the next couple of weeks. So here's the question. We're talking with our resident humor expert, Cody. Cody, if someone wanted to try to use humor at work more, what's one thing they could try this week? What's one thing they could maybe do?
One thing you can try this week is to be your genuine self at work and use your internal light as your humor.
Ooh. Oh, I love that. Being your genuine self. That's not the easiest thing to do, man. That takes some time to be able to feel comfortable to do that, you know?
Oh, you need to be confident. I would definitely confident in who you are. And this is a good way of finding out who you are.
Mm. Oh, that's great. Okay, you heard it here, guys. So this week, the next couple of weeks, try to be your genuine self. So that means maybe being vulnerable with someone or making a joke, right? Making fun of yourself. I think, me and Cody talked about the value in making fun of yourself and keeping things light. So this week, try that. Try to be your genuine self. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Make it a great day. The Introvert Leader Podcast. Subscribe for new episodes every other Wednesday.